I grew up outside of Eugene, Oregon in a little backwoods town called Walton. When I was 16 years old and a sophomore in high school, I actually dropped out of school. School was boring for me and I wanted to be a heavy metal guitar player. I then went on, I started taking some classes at a little community college. But when I was 18, I got offered a spot in a band playing guitar, so I dropped out of school again to go on tour. I had hair down to here, and I thought I had made it. The only problem was that the pay was $75 a week. Now, my very first job was a little manual labor job that I got when I was 15. I made $3.50 an hour. I kept working on and off there for 7 years. At my height, I was making $10 an hour. I never made more than $10 an hour until I was in my mid-20s. And growing up out in the woods in rural Oregon, I wasn't exactly surrounded by models of business and financial success. In fact, I didn't know anyone who was wealthy and anyone who was successful in business. I didn't even know anyone who knew anyone who was. I moved out on my own when I was 22 years old into a little trailer that I traded for a guitar plus $1,500 in cash. The first month I lived there, I remember I couldn't come up with the rent for my little space that my trailer was on, which I think was $135. And I can remember when the first of the month came and not having the money and the pit in my stomach. And then the second of the month and the third of the month went by. And I had to go and sell one of my favorite guitar amps to come up with the $135 for my rent. It was really a low point for me. And if you can believe this, later things even got worse. Fast forward 9 years later, after trying all kinds of business ideas, being a real estate agent, being a marketing consultant, a bunch of other things, I woke up, I was 31 years old, I was $30,000 in debt, and I was unemployed. And I had to start all over again. But this time I had to start over with $30,000 in credit card debt, which, felt like I was carrying, a horse on my shoulders. Now, I was just about to try my next business idea when a friend of mine showed me how he was selling a PDF ebook online and making great money doing it. He was making fun of me for doing my normal business, and he encouraged me to try what he was doing. So I said okay, and I locked myself in my bedroom, and in just a few weeks, I wrote a book about something simple that I knew. It was about dating, a book of dating advice for men. So I wrote it with a pen name because I have a name that isn't easy to remember, and this is the internet. I had no idea what would happen. So it took me another couple months to figure out how to make a website and set up a shopping cart and get web hosting. I'd never done any of this stuff before, and back in those days, my website would go down all the time. Web hosting was unreliable. It was really an interesting time. But I finally got my new self-published ebook up on my website, and I started offering it for sale. And at first I would, sell 1 or 2 books here and there. As I mentioned, I'd never done any of this online business stuff before, so it was completely new. But I could see the potential. I would go to sleep at night and then roll out of bed in the morning, and I'd roll right into the chair, with my computer in my bedroom and check my sales stats. And sometimes, I'd have someone in a different part of the world buy my book, and I'd make money, while I was asleep. And those 1 or 2 book sales here and there, they were like a little candle in the dark that gave me hope. Then, a few months into building my online business, something happened that changed the course of my life. In marketing, one of the things that you learn is that it's important to test the price of what you sell. Sometimes you sell more if you have a lower price, but sometimes you actually sell more if you have a higher price. And you don't know until you test. That's the interesting part. So one day, I raised the price of my ebook by $10. So when I first put it online, I was selling it for $29.95. And so that morning, I raised the price to $39.95. Now, it just so happened that a couple of friends were visiting. Now, I was living up in Los Angeles, and they were visiting San Diego, which was a couple of hour drive away. So I put up my little price test, and I went out and got in my car, and I drove the couple of hours down to San Diego to hang out with them for the day. So later in that day, after spending the afternoon with them, I asked one of them if I could use his computer to check my sales stats online. I was completely shocked to see that I had sold 10 copies of my little book that day. A new record, by far. I raised my price by $10 and had my best sales day ever. Okay, about $400 in sales. And I quickly did the math in my head. If I can sell $400 a day worth of these books, that's $12,000 a month. Right? If I can make $12,000 a month in sales, I am free. And I couldn't believe it. For 15 years, I'd worked hard in jobs, in businesses, as a self-employed marketing consultant. All of a sudden, I wrote a book about dating, no formal education, no degree, no marketing MBA, nothing. But I put my little book online and made $400 in sales in one day while I was hanging out with my friends. So then I added an opt-in page to my website and I started building a list of subscribers. I started to build my audience. Now keep in mind, I started with exactly 0 people on my list. I didn't even know what an email list was. I didn't know what an autoresponder was. I didn't know what any of these things were. But little by little, I found my way. I would email out tips about dating and I'd watch the sales come in. And after doing this for 8 or 9 months, I finally offered to do my first live seminar. Okay, 23 people paid to attend my first little seminar. I was so nervous that I could barely sleep the night before. Now the seminar didn't make any money, but I did something else at the seminar. I borrowed a video camera and I recorded it. Okay, and I also recorded it on audio. And then a few months later, I released an audio version of the seminar as my second product. And my business literally doubled overnight. So here's a little tip. Right? If you have one product in your business, make one that's much more expensive and offer it to everyone who buys your first product. This alone can often double a business when it's done right. So remember, at first, I sold one of my PDF ebooks, and I sold them here and there for $29.95. Okay, that's not life-changing money or anything. But then I had my big $400 day a few months in. Then I added my opt-in page, and I started growing my audience and my email list. Okay, so again, $29.95 is not a lot of money, but I kept at it, and by the end of my first year, I'd made $150,000 in total sales. Not too bad. But my second year, I did $500,000 in sales. And then I did $1.5 million in sales, and then $5 million, and then $12 million. And then I started partnering with other teachers and offering their products for sale. And things continued to skyrocket in my business. Then came the call. Tony Robbins wants to interview you. So I went down to San Diego again to meet Tony Robbins, and I made friends with him. And then he interviewed me for his new Money Masters program. Then he invited me to come out and speak at his Ultimate Business Mastery program with all these incredible business gurus, okay, which was a highlight of my life. I got another call from someone who wanted me to interview Sir Richard Branson, one of the most successful entrepreneurs of all time. So I went out to interview him on stage at a very special event. I also did a talk at that event, and we raised a couple of $100,000 for his charity, which is Virgin Unite. And then we surprised him when I went on stage to do my interview with him. After the interview, Sir Richard asked me to come and interview him again at his Rock the Casbah charity event in Los Angeles. Soon after that, I was invited to be a guest teacher at the USC Marshall School of Business, which is one of the top entrepreneur schools in America. And what do you think that I told them that I thought was the best idea that I had for starting a business? Of course, right? To create a product with the knowledge that they had and to sell it online. Now, since then, I have taught thousands and thousands and thousands of people around the world how to do this. And I've watched as many of them have gone on to create digital products and online businesses that gave them the lives that they've always wanted to live.